Hi everyone, I'm Lori Marabelli, an abstract painter living here in downtown Toronto, and today I am debuting my series in which I'm going to try and help you all, especially the ones who are just starting out their career and they want to work in non-objective format. A lot of people think that a composition is what makes a good painting, but in reality, it's the value of the composition that makes a good painting. When I was in university, I took one class that forever changed my life. Now, there is a misconception out there that color theory is about mixing, how do you mix your colors and how to use the color wheel. But that really isn't the entire program. What it teaches you is the value and how to understand value, how to create shades of different values so that you can add it to your composition, which will take your eye on a journey all over the canvas. So I'm gonna take you on my little journey today where I try and explain value scale to you in some simple terms that hopefully will improve your artwork down the road. So come on, let's start making some art. I'm gonna be working today in only a grayscale, which means simply that I'm gonna take the color gray, which is a neutral color, and I'm going to use varying shades and tints of gray to create white all the way to black using gray. Each of those grays are going to be a different shade or a different tint. And just to explain that to you, a shade is when you make a color darker and a tint is when you make a color lighter. And so I'm going to just give you a quick little example as to why I think value is more important than composition. Here's my quick little tutorial to prove my theory. If I was simply just using gray, and there's lots of paintings that you have seen that are black and white, that don't have any color whatsoever, and they are stunning, and they grab you and they bring you in, but it's because there's value. So if I was doing a painting simply with just gray, because that means I'm not using any other colors. So if I was using only gray and I didn't know anything about the value scale, essentially what my painting would look like would just be a simple gray painting. There's no lights, there's no dark, and your eye absolutely does nothing. It just looks at the entire surface and it instantly gets bored because there's no excitement to it. And the reason why I think if you don't have the foundation of understanding the grayscale, trying to apply it to a non-objective work can be very complicated because you don't understand what you're painting. You're painting thoughts and emotions. When you're looking at a landscape, you can understand the depths of field, the light, the shadows, understand the forms of trees and flowers and grass, but there isn't any of that in abstract. It's all internalized, and you're putting what you feel and think onto a painting. And so how do you know where to put the shades? How do you know where the light value is or where your light source is? How do you know the composition when there's no depth of field? There's nothing to refer to. So my suggestion is, if you are just starting out and you're trying to become a non-objective painter, is practice first in realism so that you can practice your grayscale and understand how to apply values to take your artwork on a journey. I think that was the simplest way for me to understand. I'm gonna start to carve out in this painting. And essentially what this is called, there is a method for this, which would be great if you researched it and tried to practice using it on landscapes. It's called the Grisaille method. And the Grisaille method was a traditional way of oil painting back in the Renaissance days. And there still are a ton of artists that still use this method. And it really lays down the foundation of where your values should be. And then at that point, you would attach your colors and overlay transparent glazes over top, and your value would be captured because you've already laid it down. It's a very cool way of painting, and it really kind of changes your brain on how you can see things in a different way. So let's see if this painting's dry. All right, my surface is dry. There's absolutely no value in this painting whatsoever. And so all you have is a blank slate. So what I'm doing right now, and I apologize that I can't show you my palette, but what I'm doing is adding some black into the neutral gray, which is this color here. And from that little mixture, I'm gonna either add white or I'm gonna add black, nothing else. And you will see how a composition starts to appear. At least that's what I'm intending to do. And I am gonna try and just make something that's representational so that you can follow along and see how I start to carve out some sort of something that's familiar to you. And keep in mind, this isn't, I haven't done representational work in quite some time. But can you see how immediately your eye is now starting to follow the path of what you're seeing here? And that's how fast you can understand that value is much more important than composition. Again, I'm adding more black, trying to darken this up. I have no idea what I'm painting yet. At some point, an image will emerge of something that's familiar, of something that's familiar, something will emerge. I'm just gonna do a quick sketch here. So now I'm starting to add some white to the gray. I'm tinting that gray to bring out some more of these whites so that you can see how that background is now is pulling forward. As you can see, I keep saying as you can see, but I know you can see because you're watching. I'm pulling these trees. I'm starting to carve out some shapes of these, I think they're evergreens maybe, not really sure. And the more I lighten, I'm stuck with the angled view of this painting. And I need a smaller brush. I don't paint little, so I have no little brushes. Let's see if this works. So this little landscape is becoming a little more clear. And of course I have to abstract it in some way because this is like a 10-minute sketch using paint. Keep adding more white, tinting that gray so that it becomes more prominent and more prominent adding small little tiny layers to bring everything to the front. Or not even to bring things to the front, but to try and keep your eye moving around that canvas. Black would do that too. I don't know what the heck these are supposed to be, but some sort of something in the background. Again, nope, wrong brush. Wrong brush. My head in the way? I hope my head's not in the way. So here too, you can see like this is the same value as this, same gray level, the same level of gray. So there's not a lot of anything going on there. So I would want to try and bring that out a little bit more to carve out. Now I'm painting with my wrong hand. To bring that out more into the surface. Same over here. And now I'm abstracting it. As you know, I like to have squares and things, but I like how this is in the background. This is a little bit more interesting here. And then if you really wanted to, I'm gonna do a little bit, because now I'm playing around. Because I like to play around. Add a couple of little drips. Again, your eye now is going to follow the line of those drips, not because the composition is taking you there, not because the color is taking you there, but because the value has changed and your eye is going to want to follow that line. I seem to be working here a little bit more than on this side, and that's really just because I'm too close to the painting. Just the way the camera is, I can't really get myself there. I don't want to be in front of the painting. So now I'm really going to add some much more white. I like how this is, but I want to take the viewer over here to make this line a little bit more interesting. So what started out as trees has now become an abstracted version of what perhaps your eye is interpreting as a landscape. And I'm not a landscape painter, but I started out as something that was recognizable so that you can have a plan, I guess, in some sort of a way of knowing where things should be or things should happen. And then you can add some, mark making. Again, I'm only using white. I'm mark making with a China marker. This is white. Accent. And then if I could find my black China marker. So what started out as a tree is no longer a tree. However, you probably can still see a minor landscape in here somewhere. But I don't like how, it's not that I don't like, this is the same value as this. And I want to start to, if you follow this line around here, I want there to be something that's interesting here, which is why your eye went there. So I'm bringing you on a journey here, but there's nothing actually that exciting here. So I don't want this area to be like, oh, what a letdown. So let's darken that up. Let's make this an area where you're like, oh yeah, I'm really glad I showed up for this little spot here because it's kind of cool. So you'll do that by darkening the color. So my suggestion to all of you who are wanting to be abstract painters or non-objective painters is to practice on a grayscale or a Grisaille method where you distort and change up a landscape so that you at least have something that your brain can understand visually, and then distort it, abstract it. That's the whole thing about abstract, right? You can make an abstract painting absolutely interesting just using black and white. I hope that you enjoyed that little tutorial and that my little trick for helping you to abstract and create non-objective work brings you a little bit more understanding of how to make a composition that is enjoyable and interesting using only value. Practice making black and white non-objective work. Try and draw a couple of trees or a flower. Flowers are really great. And just distort it, abstract it. But make it interesting using only a grayscale so that you can understand how that push and pull is what really makes a great abstract painting work. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial using the Grisaille method. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and I will see you all next week.